Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be testing a bunch of no-bake dessert recipes, just in time for what's hopefully going to be spring, finally. Okay, if I'm being honest, this video started really because I've been fascinated by this yogurt cheesecake trend that I've been seeing everywhere online. This hack of like putting biscuits into yogurt and somehow magically transforming it into cheesecake. It's kind of gotten out of hand. There's been like spin-offs of it everywhere, but then it really just got me thinking about how there really are a lot of these sort of like no-bake dessert recipes. And you know, with spring and summer right around the corner, not really exactly the type of weather you want to turn on your oven even when you're craving something sweet. So felt like the perfect time to test some of these out. I will say though, as somebody with a sweet tooth, I have been looking into a little more sort of like these healthier, fun options. So that may be one of the running themes today. Once again, I have curated a list of 8 different no-bake dessert recipes, ranging from really viral ones to interesting ones to, of course, some indulgent ones. What can I say? It's gonna be a very sweet day. Let's get into it. Okay, this is the one that started it all. The yogurt cheesecake that we've probably all seen everywhere. So apparently the original version started in Japan the beginning of this year, where they used Greek yogurt and a type of shortbread cookie. And then somewhere along the way, Biscoff became the more popular choice to use instead. So that's what we have here. There's no cream cheese, no eggs, no baking. Literally just some yogurt scooped out to make way for the cookies that are going to be pushed straight into the yogurt. And that is literally it. It's so simple. I'm just filling it up with as many cookies as I can possibly get in there. And just like that, it sits overnight in the fridge where they'll soften up, the flavors release a little, and what do you know, the cookies have now become cake. It feels magical, right? But it makes so much sense. Scooped like this, and it really looks just like cheesecake. I'm just angry I hadn't thought of this before. Arguably the most viral one we'll be trying today, the Biscoff and Greek yogurt cheesecake. Just taking a whiff here, and it still very much smells like Greek yogurt as expected. And then maybe a little bit of that like whiff of cinnamon in there. But I think what's the most maybe delightful thing about this one is that the cookies in here really sort of soften, become this sort of like cake-like consistency. It was a giant tub of yogurt cheesecake. The layers are still so distinct. They're basically acting as the lady fingers in tiramisu. I think the reason this works is because even though we didn't add any sort of sugar in here, the Biscoff cookies, they have this sort of like brown sugar flavor in them. It actually has brown sugar syrup in here. So the cookies essentially are the sugar and the flavoring, the cinnamon in here. So you get the cinnamon, the brown sugar, and it works really well with the tang of the Greek yogurt. It actually does remind me sort of like a cheesecake crumble. Texture-wise, it feels very creamy. I do think the Greek yogurt you choose here makes a huge difference. I deliberately went for a creamier, richer one, so it really does sort of emulate that kind of like creamy, cream cheesy cheesecake texture. If you're a fan of like not too sweet desserts, I actually think this kind of hits the spot. I would give this a 9 out of 10. Honestly think it's a great way to satisfy a craving. Would do this again. Just maybe a smaller size. All right, so remember how I said there were a lot of spin-offs from the OG yogurt cheesecake? So this one is one of those where yogurt and cookies will transform into banana pudding. Pretty much the same yogurt base, except I'm going with a vanilla flavor this time. This version comes with little speckles of vanilla bean, which I love. I also just like to give it a light stir, make it a little easier to add our mix-ins. The idea is to stir in a packet of banana instant pudding mix, where once it's folded in, you can see how the yogurt instantly becomes even thicker in texture. So now it's almost sort of like a thicker whipped cream. Also adds a nice little tinge of color. So now, just as before, I'm trying to cram in my vanilla wafers. They're a little smaller, so there's a lot of finagling going on. But eventually it's looking like a very loaded tub of ice cream. Same thing, just letting it chill in the fridge overnight. It's really just like an icebox cake. And the next day, as expected, the wafers have softened, and I just have to say, going in with an ice cream scoop for this was a great idea. Serve it up with fresh banana, and it looks like a perfectly delicious, extra chunky banana pudding cake. Woohoo! I really dressed this one up to look a little more fancy. Look at that. Also, it is so intensely banana flavored. With the pudding mix in here, the yogurt now has much more of like a custardy ice cream texture. It does almost like look like ice cream here, which is fascinating. That's the pudding mix doing the work. A little thicker in texture. It's crazy. It actually smells exactly like your regular banana pudding. I don't even smell the yogurt anymore. Okay, wait, hold up. Adding the pudding has actually given it so much body. Like, it's creamy but fluffy at the same time. Even more of that like velvety texture that kind of just lingers. Almost like a even richer, more luxurious version of a banana pudding. Even though the Greek yogurt is still the main base, the core flavor here is still very much banana. And with that sort of like tanginess, which I really like, I think it really balances out the sweetness and the creaminess. And the wafers in here as well, same thing, has softened up. I was not expecting this, but I actually think I might rate this even higher than our first one, which would put this up to a 10 out of 10. No joke, this is something that I feel like I would make a big batch of and serve to guests. This one I've actually had bookmarked for quite a while because, well, I love dates. But this was sold to me as an all-natural Snickers bar substitute, so I was a little skeptical. But looking at the steps for it, there's really very little room for error here. It's just medjool dates stuffed with peanut butter and crushed nuts, then dipped in chocolate and set in the fridge. So, you know, I figured, what the helly, why not? I went in with all my favorite things, piped in some chunky peanut butter, crushed up some salted pistachios, pecans. These dates I got also came a lot larger than expected, so they actually ended up fitting quite a lot of stuff in there. Also, I always have a bag of dark chocolate handy, so that's what I melted up with just a teeny squeeze of oil to add a little bit of shine. And so then the stuffed dates can just go right in. Felt a little bit like a chocolatier here, just trying to get that light coating of chocolate on the outside. But also this seemed like a good opportunity to dress it up a little. So I'm sprinkling on some more nuts and these candied citrus, sumaquat specifically, that I had lying around. It really wasn't supposed to end up looking so fancy, but honestly, once this set properly, I feel like it could actually make a great V-Day gift. A date for a date. This actually turned out to look a lot more gourmet looking than I expected it to. The candied orange on top, or a little sprinkle of nuts. This is 100% something that would win me over by visuals alone. It smells delicious. Wow, this is what it looks like in the middle. This other one I cut cleanly, you can very clearly see the peanut butter in there. I do think the dates I used were a little crazy big, but it actually worked out really well here where the chocolate coating outside is just like a thin layer. And so the chewy date on the inside, which is this sort of like candied, sweet and sticky texture, is most of what I'm tasting right now. And I guess that sort of replaces the like nougat and like the caramel. And again, it's just the sugars from the dates. I gotta say, as somebody who loves like a chewy, nutty, and fruity candy bar, this sort of really hits the spot. It has everything you would want, texture-wise, flavor-wise, just very simple ingredients, but when you put it all together, it just works so well and just becomes something that feels like it's from an entirely different level. I feel like I've been giving such high scores, but this one I also really like. And for the ease of it too, I'm gonna put this at a 9 out of 10. Am I being too generous? It is really good though. Always think about it in the context of would I gift this to someone? And the answer is yes, I would. It is that good. This next treat is essentially a loaded nougat candy bar, and I actually first came across these when I was traveling in Asia. They were crazy popular. Like, people were buying them in bulk, in different flavors. Every other shop had them. And it turns out though, they are really not that hard to make at home at all. The core of it is melted marshmallows and butter, which is what we're adding some milk powder to make it into this very chewy nougat base. It's also very customizable. The idea really is just to add some variation of buttery crackers, chewy fruit, crunchy nuts. I really like Ritz crackers for this. I feel like it makes it extra buttery and a little salty. The tricky part really is to try and press it down tight enough without crushing everything inside. So I'm just trying to form a shape of sorts so it can cut up nicely later, working while it's still, warm and moldable. My favorite part though is cutting them up, because then you get these beautiful cross sections and now these little pillowy bejeweled bites. These look so pretty, these nougat candies. I believe in Chinese we call them 雪花酥, so it's like a snowflake pastry, most likely because usually people cover it with some sort of milk powder to keep it from sticking. I will say though, I made these nougat candies yesterday and they have already become rock hard. So I think I didn't store them properly. They do have to be in a tightly sealed container. So I actually very quickly whipped up a different batch, and this time I put a lot more ingredients in here. So you can kind of see the version that I made yesterday, and this is the version I made today. This one has a lot more nougat and this one has a lot more filling. This version too, I will say, is also a lot more like the version I saw in Shanghai and Chengdu. Extremely chewy as expected. Really is just sort of like a jacked up Rice Krispie treat. And I do think it is one of those cases where the more toppings you can pack in there, the better it's going to taste. There's just more textures going on. I feel like I might break my teeth trying to bite into this old one. Yeah, no. Also, speaking technically a little bit, I do think the more milk powder you put in there, the more firm it's going to be. I'm gonna put up the updated recipe of this version on Patreon. If you like Rice Krispie treats, I think you're gonna love this. Personally, 6.5. I think it's very fun to make, it's very fun to eat. I do think that a couple more bites and it can be a little cloyingly sweet. Good to try, not sure how often I'll have it. This is a fancy one. Lemon posset is technically a British dessert that's been around for centuries, but it seems like the internet has rediscovered it lately and become somewhat obsessed with it. Mainly because of how well it fits into the low effort, high reward category. And it's served up in these halved lemon shells, but as fancy as it looks, it's really just heavy cream, sugar, and lemon juice, where the cream and sugar are first cooked together briefly, thickened just a little before the juice and the zest is added. This way they don't immediately react and curdle. Straining it, I will say, is also super important. This is what makes sure that the cream, the mixture, stays extra silky. Then that is poured straight into the lemon shells so they can slowly set in the fridge. And once again, that is it. The acid in the lemon juice curdles the cream just enough to make it set into this silky, barely wobbly, intensely lemony thing. It is beautiful. Lemon posset. This is another one that I've been seeing everywhere. I feel like so many people have recreated this dessert, especially for the summer. It feels very on brand. It's supposed to be lemony but creamy, extremely refreshing. And you know me, I love my lemons. I love this sort of like citrusy flavor for desserts. Ooh, and it smells so good. I mean, that's the thing about using the rind of the lemon. You get so much of that freshness right here. I always thought this was kind of like a custard situation, but again, there's no egg in here. It's heavy cream and lemon juice, and so the acid with the cream, that's what makes it solidify in this way. It's sort of just like ice cream or like a very light and creamy mousse. The texture of it really does feel a lot more like sorbet, the nicer, creamier version of it. Because of the heavy cream in here, it gives it that sort of like silky texture, very pleasing. And then you sort of have the freshness of the lemon underneath it all. Given that this really was just like, what, 3 ingredients? This is pretty impressive. I feel like I have to give it some points for presentation. I would give this one a solid 8 out of 10. Now I gotta try a version with orange, which I hear is also very delicious. All right, if you saw cottage cheese in the ingredient shot and balked a little, I do not blame you. I too reacted the same way, which is why I had to do this. I had to see for myself if this cottage cheese ice cream thing was a truth or bust. And again, we're really just blending up the cottage cheese with a bunch of mixed berries and some honey, so it can't be that bad, right? I was worried about the lumpy texture of the cheese at first, but really, as you can see in the blender, it just becomes completely smooth. There's no lumps, there's no weird bits. Basically now it's just like a smoothie bowl. So then this is what goes into the freezer for a few hours. Now I did try freezing it overnight too, but then this is what it became. It's just this icy concrete block that I just can't even scoop. So that was a no-go. I tried again, freezing one for a little over 2 hours, and this time has a little more of a scoopable consistency. So looks promising. All right, so I have 2 versions of the cheese ice cream here. This is the version that's been in the freezer for about 2.5 hours, and this is the version that has frozen overnight and then softened a little bit in the fridge. So the original recipe only froze theirs for 1.5 hours, and somehow they already had the perfect ice cream texture. Maybe their freezer is just super powerful. This is the closest I could get. You can tell that it's very, very much of like melted ice cream consistency. Smells like berries. Okay, there's almost like a slight savoriness in here. I will confess I don't normally eat cottage cheese. I think it's always the texture that's put me off. When it's blended together like this, this really just tastes like your typical berry yogurt smoothie. Try this other one. They really just taste the exact same. It does feel a lot more icy. Outside of that though, I think the purpose of this recipe was very much for people to enjoy sort of like a berry ice cream situation that has more protein. I don't know about ice cream, but I do think if you like berry yogurts and you want more protein in there, this is honestly not a bad option. You can't really taste cottage cheese. 6 out of 10. Instructions were not very clear, but repurposed as a yogurt smoothie, sure, why not? Okay, can we talk about ice cream sandwiches for a second? Because I feel like they're one of the desserts that everyone loves but nobody really makes at home, which is why I wanted to give this a try, even though this might be the most tedious and time-consuming one on the list today. Also, this version uses what we typically know as cheesecake crust base as the cookie for the sandwich. The key part is to really press the crushed bits down into the pan so they can freeze and firm up properly. So while that's freezing, I'm getting started on the no-churn strawberry ice cream, starting with heavy cream and vanilla that I'm whipping into stiff peaks. Also going in with the condensed milk, and I had this fancy Harry's Berry strawberry jam in my fridge, so that's what I'm adding instead of regular strawberry puree. I just want to say I think strawberry ice cream might be my favorite ice cream flavor, by the way. It just always tastes like peak summer and sunshine. Again, freezing it does take quite some time. We have to wait till the ice cream is frozen solid before I can add on the rest of the graham cracker crust. But now, once it's frozen overnight, the crust is now ideally rock hard, and I can slice it up into bars. So then we end up with this gorgeous pink ice cream layer crowned in her golden cracker crust. Believe it or not, this is actually my first time making ice cream sandwich. It's so cute. This is honestly such a pretty treat. I love that you can see the strawberry filling in there, the real bits of strawberry. I think the original recipe actually made the strawberry puree from scratch, but I honestly think if you find like a good strawberry jam, it's going to work just as well. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh. It smells like butter and biscuits and strawberry, which is exactly what it is. But I love this because the cookie base we're using here is essentially what we would do for like a cheesecake crust. I've never seen it used in this sort of like sandwich situation. This is why you gotta push it in, because it really then just becomes packed so well. It really does taste like a strawberry cheesecake. I do want to point out though that the ice cream in the center isn't really completely an ice cream. It is a lot lighter. Essentially, it's not going to be that sort of like dense ice cream bite you would expect in your typical ice cream sandwich, but I think the concept of it works really well. Who knows, having it sort of lighter might actually work better for, you know, when it's really hot and you don't want something that creamy. 7 out of 10. I think there's a lot of potential here. Solid recipe. Sticky toffee pudding is one of those desserts that feel like it requires a whole production, but what if I told you there was a shortcut version that takes 10 minutes and lives in a mug? That's what this one's about. It starts with my favorite dates again, of course, and softened in a little bit of hot water and some baking soda. Becomes very easy to crush down into a paste. So this is what I'm adding the rest of my ingredients into. And I just want to say how much I adore the fact that we can do so much of this in just the one mug with just the one spoon. You can also sort of see how the mixture becomes increasingly gooey and sticky, which to me means that it honestly just looks extra promising. So then while that's microwaving, I'm moving on to the homemade butterscotch sauce, which also really doesn't take that much effort at all. Just the 3 ingredients into a bowl, also popped into the microwave, so then it can be served over what is now our warm sticky cake, alongside a dollop of whipped cream on the very top. Guys, this looks so good already. I am so excited. Saving the best for last. I was really looking forward to this one. I just really like sticky toffee pudding. That sort of like caramelized dates, you know, like that brown sugar, molassesy flavor. So to have an option where I can just whip up one in like 5 minutes is incredible to me, if it's good. This technically still falls into the no-bake category, right? We didn't really turn on the oven, we just used the microwave, but it smells so good. That sort of like butterscotch sauce on top. Ooh, love it. Probably the most indulgent one yet. Given the ingredients that went in here, I should have known that nothing would go wrong, but not sure if this is embarrassing to admit as somebody who obviously loves baking, but I love a cake in a mug. I'm such a sucker for this sort of like individual portion. I don't know, I think something about it just feels so nostalgic to me. Okay, I'm being biased, but that aside, as somebody who loves sticky toffee pudding, this is such a genius way to, once again, achieve that satisfaction. Kind of dangerous, actually, given how easy this is. This is also maybe the only dessert that feels a little more cozy weather appropriate. But hey, we'll save it for a rainy day. I'll knock a point off for the multiple steps, but a solid 9 out of 10 for me. Great for self-indulgence and just a little bit of comfort on a sad day. Ooh, I feel like I got butterscotch sauce all over my face, but there it is, all 8 of our viral no-bake dessert recipes, tried, tested, rated. I feel like we had a lot of really strong contenders today, a lot of ones that would be really great to enjoy, whether by ourselves or with friends or family. So I'll be putting a bunch of those recipes up on Patreon. That way we can all make them together and enjoy. As always, let me know if you have a favorite from today or if there's another recipe that you've been curious about. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.